and welcome back to my channel. My name is Caira and I make videos on tips, tricks, and organization for small space living. If you've been following along on my channel, you will know that I currently live in a house. My boyfriend and I bought a house together. We are relocating to Chicago for work. So we are up and moving out of our house. We are renting it out on Airbnb and we are moving into a studio apartment in Chicago. When we agreed to move, we'd never even been to Chicago before. We knew that if this was what we're gonna do, we wanted to live like right in the heart of downtown of the city, because if we don't know it at all, we want to get to know it as much as possible. We definitely have a budget. I mean, we just bought this house. We haven't even been living in it for a year. We needed to find a place that fit our budget. We decided we would rather sacrifice space and live exactly where we'd want to live. So the way that Chicago works for renters is you can look up places online, but 90% of those places, either they don't list the actual street address, so it'll be somewhere on that street in the city, but it's not showing you exactly where the apartment complex is, or it's not necessarily an apartment that's actually up for rent and they just put that there so that way you then get in touch with a realtor and then the realtor will show you actual apartments. I've never seen this in any other cities before. Granted, like, I haven't tried to rent in many other cities, but in Chicago, it's most common that you get a realtor when you're trying to find a place to rent. This is at no cost to the renter, but it's someone who will give them a bunch of options, drive them around to all of the different places they want to look at, and then the way that the realtor gets paid is, I believe they get first month's rent, but it comes from the apartment complex. That's who pays them. So it's at no cost to you. We've been told about this, and honestly, like, I am just kind of an independent person, so I was looking up like as much information as I possibly could on this the entire time. And then I did get in touch with a realtor and I had them send me over some places in the locations we wanted and within the budget. And like all the places they sent over were fine, but they were all just like, it did not get me excited. They were all just kind of grungy and run down and in old condos, just nowhere that someone would feel amped to move into. I was looking on my own and I was able to find a couple places, not many, but a couple places that fit our budget that were really, really cool. Granted, the realtor was sending me all one bedrooms and these I found were studios. So it's definitely smaller space, but the actual spaces were way cooler. So the first one we looked at, it's actually in a building. It's where they used to build pianos, and then after that it turned into an old music school. They completely like redid it. Everything in it is new, but it has a lot of that like vintagey vibe, and it has some of the original pianos, which is super cool. But the apartment, they only had a couple left, and so the studio that we looked at, it's actually considered either a junior one bedroom or a convertible studio. I've heard both terminology, but it means that the bedroom is like a separate space, but there isn't a door. I really did like that. I wanted it to feel like there was like a separate area for the bedroom. I didn't want to have like the bed near the kitchen like in my old studio. I wanted it separate just since Alex and I are gonna be living in it together. So I did really like that. The other thing was this was on the top floor, so it did have higher ceilings than all of the other apartments, which was really cool. And it had a really cool view out of the windows. It had big windows that would get a lot of light in the morning. Being such a plant nerd, like that really excited me. Downfalls, like the kitchen was absolutely tiny. There is no counter space, literally like none. There's none. I don't know. It was just, it's a small apartment for sure. There's not a lot of closet space either, but it was a really neat spot. Also looked at another apartment in this same complex. This one was technically a one bedroom. The reason we really didn't like this one, and I didn't even take any video of it, was because it was on the bottom floor in a courtyard and it only had one window, so it was just so dark. And on the window, the fire escape went through it, so like even the window was blocked and just there was gonna be no natural light, and that I just know would drive me really crazy and I'd feel really cooped up. Even though it technically was a one bedroom, it felt just way smaller. Then we looked at a different apartment complex. This one had floor to ceiling windows. It was really an artsy vibe. I think it used to be an old warehouse that got redone, but this place was really cool. This one was more expensive than either of the ones we'd seen before. This one was cool because it was longer, there was a lot more kitchen space, and the bedroom felt a lot more separate. My biggest downfall with this one was the windows. It's really hard to see in the video, but there's walls on either side, so it's kind of like this window would be pushed back 10 feet and it didn't get any light because of that, because you were so far back and it was just that one set of windows. So it did feel darker, but I did really like this option. The last one we looked at, this was one of the coolest studios I've honestly ever seen. The floor to ceiling windows are awesome. It was really, really high ceilings in this one, and it was high ceilings because it had a lofted bed, and the bed loft was huge. Like, there was actually a ton of space up there. There would be a ton of space for storage. Like, that was a really, really cool area, and I liked it a lot. But I don't know if you can tell in the video, but the ladder to get up there is honestly like 12 feet. Like, it was really high. And with Louis, like, Louis sleeps on my bed. I just couldn't imagine making him sleep down below while I climb up in there, because I couldn't. I would not. It was really steep. There's no way I could climb up with him. That was cool. This one was also more expensive. That was a bummer. It was a really neat spot. The other reason I really did not like this one was with the floor to ceiling windows. Like, that's so cool. The light is awesome, but it was on the second story, so literally everyone would be able to see into that apartment. I could see if people were texting when they were walking by below. Like, it was so close. I just don't need people looking in on me that much. In the end, we actually ended up going with the first apartment, the one in the old music hall. I really loved this apartment, and I'm super excited about the space. The layout, we've kind of discussed like how we're gonna put all of our furniture, so I'll discuss that in a next video, but they did send a cool screenshot, which I'll put up here. It made it really convenient. If you watched my last video for planning to move out, I talked about like drawing a floor map. This was really nice because they just had one, so all I had to do was draw on it to be able to plan out my space. That was my experience looking for apartments in Chicago. I'm super excited about it. The complex itself like is just amazing, and I'm so excited. I'm really, really glad that we ended up going for the smaller apartment in the much cooler complex. I think being in a new city will actually really use it, and it's in a great area, and I don't know, I'm just so excited. That's all I've got for you today. If you have any questions about this video, please comment them below. As always, if you haven't already, please hit that big red subscribe button. I make videos on tips, tricks, and organization for small space living, and I will see you next time.